I think I've messed up my life and I really need some guidance. Extended post alert, TLDR at the end. I'm not sure where to begin, so let me just say that this will be lengthy, that I will be using my throwaway here since I am going to be completely honest, and that I am aware that I am wrong in this instance, so please don't respond negatively. Unless I'm really low and in dire need of assistance, I don't typically ask for advice on Reddit. And let me tell you, I've reached a new low. Before I go crazy, I need some help. For the first time since I was 13, I am suddenly alone, and rather than making an effort to enjoy being by myself, I feel as though I have utterly failed at life. I was unhappy for a large portion of the 6 years I was in a relationship with my now ex-boyfriend, who is 24 years old. We'll refer to him as Ray. He hasn't spent the majority of her life with us, but we have a lovely 2-year-old daughter. He is a musician who continuously prioritizes his performances, rehearsals, parties, and drinking routines over my daughter and me. When she was approximately 9 months old, I had actually posted before, asking for help on how to handle the terrible connection. I felt like moving out of my apartment with Ray as soon as we moved in together, even before we had our kid. He was a terrible guy to live with generally because he was immature, overly controlling, and messy. In addition, he struggled with alcoholism. However, I loved him, and that emotion overcame any problems I was observing. I always confided in him and thought of him as my best friend. Even though I tried to ignore his bad tendencies and clung to our happy memories, they were still there. I would bring up the difficulties and he would make an effort to address them, but after a week or two, he would return to his previous poisonous behaviors. It was a vicious cycle. Every time I was angry with him, he would promise and demonstrate change, which would make me feel better. Then when he would go back to his previous behavior, I would become angry once more. Rinse, then carry on. I thought I was a very relaxed girlfriend to him because I was always so wonderful to him, and I felt really taken for granted. I've never felt resentful or jealous of my female friends. His constant touring, late-night band practices, and frequent drunken returns home didn't typically bother me. Well, until the baby arrived, that is. I expected him to grow up for her as well. I made an effort to hold him to a higher standard and express my dissatisfaction, but most of the time, it was ignored and nothing changed. We moved in with my parents after our daughter was born, since I knew I would need their assistance. In a way, our relationship was better than before because of my parents' support, financially and in terms of the baby, but my mom was more present with her than he was. I would always try to ignore his horrible behavior toward me and try to convince myself that we were still in love, despite the fact that my parents never stopped pointing out how inappropriate the way he was treating me was. But because I loved him, I always chose to overlook their criticism. He was never around, and when he was, he would be high or drunk, wishing he was with his buddies instead, and irritated when I asked for help. As a result, I still felt like a single mother. One day, totally out of the blue and unanticipated, I had a meeting with someone I was deeply in love with. I was very glad to talk to this person. It helped me forget about my terrible relationship and all the negative things that had happened in my life. We spotted each other because of our matching tattoos, our comparable personalities, and the fact that he had a child about my age. I had never met someone who had a band tattoo like this or who liked the band as much as I did, and the tattoos were all about music or bands. This guy, 23 Mellors, will be referred to as John. Since I just knew John for a month or so, we would speak as friends on occasion. Ray was quite controlling, and I knew he wouldn't want me talking to another guy, even if we were friends. So I would delete the messages. However, I didn't think of John as just a friend, and I could see he had feelings for me as well. I hadn't even discussed Ray with John at this point. I believe he believed I wasn't with my daughter's father, even though he hadn't inquired. I never claimed to be or not to be. Ray wasn't like John at all. He was stable, had a well-paying work, lived independently, was courteous and a gentleman, etc. That, I believe, is what drew me in even deeper. By the way, John was wonderful with my daughter, and she liked him. I loved seeing John make an attempt even though he didn't really know my child. And I always yearned to see Ray interact cutely with our daughter, but I rarely saw it. I thought that one of his hottest characteristics was his hands-on fatherhood. Ray came home intoxicated one day, and it started a terrible argument between us. He spit on me, threw water on our child, and said he didn't want to be with me. I was extremely insulted since I knew she wasn't his child. He claimed he no longer loved me and that he was just with me for the baby. I had never sobbed that much. It was awful. The following day, he sobbed to me and declared his desire to be with me, saying he was blackout drunk and couldn't recall what he had said. After about 3 days, I took him back since I'm a forgiving person. Following that, once things had calmed down, we tried to make things work for our daughter. I may have been trying to fool myself more than him, but I tried so hard to the point that I was nearly pretending to be happy with him. Then he announced that he and his band were embarking on a 2-week tour. Hardly even asked me for advice on it. I was quite depressed and felt that I and my daughter had been forgotten and neglected once more. John told me he liked me while he was away. I told John, in what at the time was a slight deception, that I was single and that Ray and I had not attempted to reconcile following that argument. I told him we had a terrible on-again, off-again relationship for a while, but we still lived together. The middle sentence was untrue, but the first and last were, the happiest weeks of my life were spent with John following Ray's departure for his tour. I've not felt so content in years. I had a sense of life. It seemed like though I was inhaling clean air for the first time. Ray never wanted to do any of the amazing things Ray and I did together, but John was great to me. We brought our children to parks, museums, lakes, walks, and swimming pools. It was incredible. Ray never listened to me the way John did. He made me feel special, told me how beautiful I was, and complimented both my work and my intellect. However, I still hadn't informed Ray that it was finished. I was putting off taking off the bandage. Things went out of control one night, and John and I had sex. It was incredible and further deepened my feelings for him. Ray was the only guy I'd ever slept with before that day because I lost my virginity to him in high school. I cried when I received a text from Ray the day after I got home from spending the night with John. I was overcome with guilt. I was a terrible person, a liar, and a cheater. At that point, I thought I had destroyed my life since I felt like I had betrayed them both. Due to lying and my inability to properly end our relationship, I ruined both my first chance at a relationship with a truly nice man and my 6-year relationship with my high school sweetheart and child's father. I finally plucked up the nerve to tell Ray it was over the phone. I informed Ray that I wasn't happy, that I didn't want to be together, and that I thought he was more concerned with his music than with our family. I told him I was done battling and that I would give him more freedom to pursue his passion. I didn't regret telling him this since it felt liberating. He broke down in tears and begged me to take him back. He didn't take it at all as I had anticipated. He promised not to take me for granted ever again and asked that I give him another chance. This made me feel bad because although I still loved him, I wasn't happy with him and was fed up with feeling like a doormat and taken advantage of. I thus persisted in wanting things to be over and refused to try to make it work. He kept saying that it was because I was moving on to someone else, but I kept lying and saying that I was just unhappy. Although I was unhappy with him, it was only because I wanted to be with John, and John made me happy that I was leaving him. Yes, I had wanted to leave him before John, but I didn't have the guts to do so until I had truly experienced what it was like to be happy in a relationship. I agree that it wasn't fair that I didn't even seem to want to break up before he left for his tour. I do take the guilt, since I didn't indicate that I didn't want to be with him at that particular time, because I was trying so hard to make it work after that fight. I had been working really hard for a while to hide my dissatisfaction because of our daughter. I came honest after he persisted in calling me out and attempting to talk to me about why I wanted to break up. In any case, the guilt was killing me. I informed him I'd met someone else and that person was the one I wanted to be with. It was amazing to come clean. I felt better about telling my 6-year closest buddy because I was sick of feeling bad about betraying him. But as was to be expected, he handled it quite poorly. Surprisingly, he was still not particularly angry with me and was desperate to be back together. Rather, he was furious at John and blamed him for it. In addition, he promised to be a better man to me and our daughter, and that he would never bring up John again if we were to get back together. He said he would change and that he understood why I strayed, because he wasn't treating me well. He began threatening to commit suicide when I continued to turn him down. Every day. Outside my house, where I reside with my parents and our daughter, he would make threats to take his own life. On Facebook Live, he made threats to end his own life. He made threats to enter our vehicle and take his own life there. He went so far as to message John on Facebook, pleading with him to tell the Milky Way to take me back. Additionally, tell her to answer my calls. I know you are with her. Up until now, everything was going fine between John and me, but John could sense that I was starting to feel the weight of Ray's threat to commit suicide over me. He sensed that I wasn't ready for a relationship and wanted one with me. I believe that my emotional baggage from Ray began to push John away. I don't blame him. Ray had no right to message and interact with him. Although John expressed his great feelings for me and his want to keep me close, he informed me that we should keep our distance from each other while I worked things out with Ray. I was troubled by Ray's actions, but I agreed because I was really starting to fall for him. However, we kept having sex even after John informed me that we needed time apart. So I assumed everything with him was still fine. After that quick conversation, we were also planning and seeing each other with the kids on a regular basis. John stopped answering my texts one day as if out of nowhere. After a week, he completely blocked me on all social media and stopped answering my phone. I was quite wounded and perplexed, crushed. I had assumed Ray had said something to him, but when Ray sent him those 2 messages, he blocked Ray. My friend checked John's Facebook and discovered that he had disclosed that he was seeing someone else. Oh dear. Now that makes sense. But after just 1 week, how could he move on from me? And when he admitted he felt the same way about me, how could he block me and stop communicating with me entirely? Never have I felt so crushed and perplexed. I'm sitting here feeling like I was ghosted by the guy I essentially ended a 6-year relationship with. Even though Ray and I didn't always have a nice relationship, we still shared a ton of amazing moments. Ray was my best buddy. I want the feelings I once shared with John back, because he showed me a different kind of relationship and given me the confidence to exit my toxic one. However, he's already gone, moved on, and made it apparent that he no longer wants me in his life. All I want is to talk to him again. And I feel so sad because I still have feelings for him that are deeper than words can express. I've never felt so isolated. Ray shared friends with most of my friends. I think I've pretty much ruined my life. I come here to ask, did I do something incorrectly? Do I deserve this for lying? A part of me is desperate to attempt to patch things up with Ray and salvage what we had. However, I wasn't content, and I worry that I'll simply sink back into the dark place I was in when I was with him. In addition, Ray never stops reminding me that I destroyed our family, our daughter's life, and my own life. And regrettably, I'm beginning to accept it. However, I want John back. If nothing else, I'd like to speak with him and find out why he blocked me. I require resolution. We made out and almost had sex the last time I saw him, so I need to know why he moved on so quickly to someone else. He also expressed his excitement about seeing me again. I'm constantly thinking about him and our activities together, since I want him so much. Concurrently, I consider how my jealousy of Ray caused us to lose our relationship. I believed that John was keeping me safe from my toxic relationship, but now that he's gone, a significant portion of me yearns to return to it. I think it will feel better to attempt to work things out with Ray than to obsess about the fact that John ghosted me, even though the relationship wasn't great. I also wanted our mutual friends back, and I felt comfortable with Ray. I'm nearly always depressed, and I no longer have the desire or drive to accomplish the things I used to like. All I can do is attempt to be upbeat for my daughter and hope that things will improve. I've come to an all-time low in my life. Thank you for reading if you did. I was dating Ray for 6 years and we had a daughter together, but he's not a wonderful partner, and I feel like he takes advantage of me. He prioritizes his friends, music, and drug and alcohol use over our kid and me. I kind of cheated on Ray by falling in love with John, someone I met when I finally found the guts to walk away from Ray and look at John. Ray lost it and began threatening to commit suicide. Furthermore, John abruptly stopped communicating with me, banning my phone number and all of my social media accounts. I learned that he moved on and began dating someone else, most likely as a result of my ongoing relationship with Ray. I'm devastated since I essentially stopped our relationship because I really liked him. It was comfy. Even if I wasn't always happy in my relationship, I ended it now for a guy who has no interest in interacting with me. However, I still think about John all the time and have such deep affections for him. I'm at a loss on what to do. While there's a part of me that wants to stick with Ray and attempt to mend our relationship, my true desire is to wait and see if John ever wants me back. Sad, I know. I want closure. Should I try to get in touch with John? Shall I hold off until John gets here? Should I attempt working with Ray to get our daughter to agree to this? I have no idea. If you enjoy this type of content and would like to see more of it, Namp, support the channel, feel free to subscribe and turn on notifications.